I want to make a video that illustrates how to um, think about terms in a way that really helps classification. We're going to classify something, and we're going to do it kind of together, well, as much as possible, on the go. Like I don't have. This is really all I have in terms of notes, because I just want to illustrate how I would think through something. If I had to, if someone said to me, "Hey, there's a 5 minute talk we want you to give, or a 10 minute talk, or how about a very short essay or article that we want you to write that classifies something, like take a general concept and break it down into, um, you know, it's different layers, or it's different, uh, parts that we could use effectively, profitably in a discussion, or how to think about it. Can you give us some? Can you give us some classes, some groups that we can use to think about this broad topic? And so we can really do that about a lot of things. Like you can take the broad topic of friendship, and you can talk about the different types of friends. In fact, we kind of already have this in parlance already in common talk, like your acquaintance, your friend, your best friend, your BFF, your frenemy, friend that's sometimes an enemy. So that's basically what we're doing here, is we're just thinking about the different subcategories that we can have under a broad notion, like friendship, or hunger. What different types of hunger is there? Or snow's a sort of a famous example, because apparently the Eskimos or the Inuit have, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 different words for snow, because they have to deal with snow so much. And if any of you have lived in the north and have lived with snow for a little bit, you know that there really are different types of snow. There's the very dry, fluffy, blowy snow. There's the heavy, heavy, thick snow. There's different ways snows can layer on top of each other as the days come and go. Let's say you have a snowfall, and the snow lasts on the ground for 5 or 6 days. And if you have sun coming out, melting the top layer, and there's all sorts of things. And snow can sound differently. As you crunch through it, as you walk through it, different types of snow have different sounds. So you can have different words for the different variations that one thing takes in living experience. Snow. It's as easy as that. So we do this quite a lot, and I want us to focus on this in this manual, and try to get better at our classification. So there are two mistakes that people can make in classification. One is to try to draw differences, or I should say, try to draw distinctions where there are really no difference. So if you have something that you're trying to break down this way, and you decide to call this X and this other thing Y, but they're actually, in reality, there's no difference between the two, then we call that a mistake. We call that creating a distinction when there is no difference. There should be a better word for it, I know, but that's really the phrase that we use: a distinction without a difference. And that's just fake complexity. That's redundancy. That's padding. That's not real analysis, okay? Because there's no difference. You only draw genuine distinctions when there are genuine shades of differences down there, okay? So that's a mistake. And then the other mistake is to overextend. In other words, to try to when something, like, honestly, when you think about it, maybe it has only like three different variations of it. And so, as you think of this broader term, like, we'll talk about education here in a little bit here, but let's say that we're looking at the notion of vacation, and you're thinking, well, there are 2 or 3 different types of vacation I can talk about. One being the staycation, where you don't go anywhere, but you try to have time off. And okay, so you have the staycation, and then you have the short-term vacation, the long-term vacation, you have the European or the, flight vacation where you actually like get on a plane and fly to another country. Like there should be a term for that. So, you would start classifying this, but then to overextend would be to try to make too many differences. It's like, we really don't recognize these things in real life. You know what I'm saying? So, overextension is where you're just trying to make too many new terms or too many new angles, too many subclasses, if you will. And then the next mistake besides that is to make a distinction in terms when there is no difference in reality. Okay, so as an example, let's work with this notion of what we're trying to do here in this college program is try to help you grow mentally, right? So we have terms for that. We have smart. We want you to be smarter. We want you to be intelligent, right? We want you to be wise. We want you to be knowledgeable. Okay. So those and then sometimes we'll be like, well, what's the difference between intelligent and knowledgeable? And exactly, right? So we have these different terms. And I want to see if we can build categories and classes so that one term refers to something very specific and another term refers to another specific separate thing under that general, umbrella, if you will, of, smartness or intelligence. Or see, we need a general term, don't we? But let's discuss this, okay? So what are we going to call someone who's very good at just facts? Like they know dates, they know weird, specific things about a lot of stuff. Maybe this is very clear for people that are sports oriented and they really have their favorite team and they can tell you, the name of this player and that player and what happened this year. And I knew one person that had stats down like you wouldn't believe, And so just information. Mechanics are like this. Really, anything that is professionally as a job, you're going to have to just get a lot of information under your belt. So information, one way to look at it is just, the way we're discussing it here is just the retention of facts, right? Facts, specifics, data, detail. Okay. Now these can be standalone things, like the boiling point of water, Fahrenheit, 212. Okay. The voltage of your household outlets, 220 volts. Whose face is on the $100 bill? Benjamin Franklin. Okay. So, we have these facts, and they can be disconnected. I mean, you might run into someone that knows a lot about all sorts of little different things, and there's no connection between the two. So people with good memories can do this. Facts. Now, are we going to call somebody who has a lot of facts in their head and where they're not connected, but standalone little items like factoids, if you want to call them that? We use, that's called trivia, by the way. Look up the root of trivia and you'll see what it is. And these persons are going to be great at Trivia Pursuit, right? Is that what we mean by when we say somebody is smart? Okay, well, I don't know yet. Maybe. Okay, but what's the difference between having facts, a lot of facts, and having knowledge, right? I want to, because when we say like this person is knowledgeable about, when we use the word knowledge, we can use it in another form, knowledgeable. And when we say this person is knowledgeable, we almost always mean that the person is knowledgeable about X, whatever X is. Like if it's cars, then we say the person is knowledgeable about cars. If it's about relationships, we say the person is knowledgeable about relationships. If it's about the Bible, we say the person is knowledgeable about the Bible. You get the idea. But when we use the term knowledgeable, we almost always refer to a body of knowledge. Okay, so when I'm trying to introduce these classifications, when I'm trying to clarify the way we use terms by trying to introduce nuances or whatnot between the terms, if I'm going to have a genuine separation between terms, like this is a term and this is a term, then I have to make sure that I look to how we actually are using the terms in the world to see if there are clues there that show me, that help me draw clearly the distinctions, right? And I feel like the way we use the word knowledge, and then with the way we turn it into an adjective or a descriptive word, when we say he is knowledgeable or she is knowledgeable, we almost always refer to a certain area. So I'm going to go ahead and use that to help me draw a distinction between facts and knowledge. Okay, for me, facts are single items about something, like, this charger here is white. That's a fact about the color. Um, the lead in the pencil is graphite. It's actually not lead. It's graphite. Okay, so that's a fact. Okay, so there you have it, right? But if I knew a lot about the facts of how this pencil was made, like how they actually picked the wood, what type of wood, how this brand is different from another brand, and why one pencil can bend and another can't, and what is the wax component of some pencils, and what is a wax pencil that has graphite, because that's a type of pencil. What type of rubber is used? Where are the pencils manufactured? How what kind of paint goes on here? Because it better not be lead paint. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. If I knew a lot about something as simple as this, then I would be, to say I'm knowledgeable about the pencil means I know all these little facts that pertain to the pencil. So let's take something a little more complicated, the computer mouse. All right, so if I'm knowledgeable about the mouse, I not only know how to use it, right, but I know how it's made, and I know the physics behind it, how the wireless connection is made, what the pressure points are, and how they work on the circuit board. I can know the theory behind how the electronic communication happens. Okay, so still a lot of facts, right? But because they're related all about one larger object, and they seem to have more, there's more of a robust understanding of the pencil, and that when I know all the facts about it, right, then I would say that makes sense to say the person is knowledgeable about pencils. Okay, the hardness of the lead and the shading and that sort of thing. Like, what's a number 2 versus what are the numbers, right? Like, this is a number 2, HB2. What does HB stand for? And 2, does that mean that there's a 1 and a 3 and a 4? How high does it go? So I'm not knowledgeable about pencils because I don't have all those facts. Okay, so you have facts, and we don't go around saying that person is facts. That person is very factive. Sometimes we say the person is very factual, but we very much will say that person is smart. There you go. Or that person is knowledgeable. So the way we kind of use the word smart and knowledgeable seems to be just pointing to our ability to have facts that pertain to something specific, like electronics or writing instruments, or you know what I'm saying. Now, what do we mean then when we say intelligent? Like, what I'm trying to find out is, when we say somebody is knowledgeable, are we using that term the same way if we say somebody is intelligent? Do we mean the same thing? Can we switch Samantha is knowledgeable with Samantha is intelligent? And can we switch it every time? Do they mean the same thing? In other words, are they truly synonymous? Because if they're not synonymous with how we use it in the world, then there's got to be a distinction somewhere in there that we're kind of recognizing. And if I can find that distinction and articulate it, that's how I become a good analyzer or a classifier here. That's the process of classification, right? So I do think that there's a difference there. I think when we say someone is knowledgeable about aircraft, we think that they can recognize that this is a space shuttle, and this one is a plane or a water plane. I'm talking about the ones hanging up in the. But that's not the same as saying that they're just intelligent. And we usually don't say, hey, they're intelligent about planes. We don't speak that. We say they're knowledgeable about planes. So it seems that I have the right, if you will, or the opportunity to draw a distinction about intelligence that would actually kind of be reflecting how we kind of carefully use it in our everyday life. So why don't I just take a stab at it and say, look, if you're intelligent with something, then not only do you understand how facts lead to sort of principles and concepts about a thing, but you are able to make those connections with other things as well. So what I'm trying to say is, someone who is smart is usually smart about something, or somebody that is knowledgeable is usually knowledgeable about something. If you're a carpenter and you're knowledgeable about carpentry, that's what it is. You're knowledgeable about that. But if we say, look, he's a carpenter and he's very intelligent, we seem to indicate that with the word intelligent is not only are you knowledgeable, but you know how to figure out problems. Like you know how to create solutions, or you know how to become knowledgeable about many things. Like there's a process of how to learn the facts and put them together and to see the texture that they weave together, the fabric that they make. And the ability to do that is what I'm trying to say is our ability to be intelligent, because someone that is intelligent, we seem to suggest as we use it in everyday language that we think this person has the ability to negotiate information, whether it's about airplanes or about pencils or electronics. They know when to move forward. They know when to pause, when to learn more, when to speak, when not to speak. They learn how to solve problems and to find information and to put it into a matrix that will allow them then to become knowledgeable about X, Y, or Z. So to say that this person has a lot of intelligence seems to me we are saying that this person has the ability to be knowledgeable about many things. Okay? To say that they are knowledgeable, to me, seems like it's already a fact that they are knowledgeable about something, about computers. But someone that is intelligent has demonstrated that intelligence by becoming knowledgeable about computers. But if they have this general intelligence, genuine intelligence, they can also become knowledgeable about many other things. You see what I'm saying? So I want to work that in. Now, time out. You might disagree with this. You might like, well, I'm not really sure. You might not feel convinced or whatnot. That's not the indication of whether this is going to be good writing or not. Like if I were to turn this into an essay, the power of the essay or the what I would say the goodness of it in terms of good writing is not that it convinces you, okay, because that's hard. That's a very hard standard to hold writing to, persuasive writing. People are ornery. There's a lot of reasons that they might not just want to believe you. Maybe they don't even want to listen to you. So, I wouldn't say that is the end all of good writing, that it actually persuades people. It has to create interest, maintain it, reward it. And it has to have a sort of integrity in itself where there's no contradictions, there's no sloppiness. It has to know its goal, it has to reach it. And I think that's just a given. But to see if it's really effective, I would say, does it create interest, maintain it, and reward it? Now, there is a sort of something I have to say here about this. When we are trying to teach methods of thinking, okay, what we have to convince you is that it's valuable to be a better thinker. And once you buy into that, then you're willing to pay attention to videos like this, because you realize this is one of the tools that makes you a better thinker. Okay, so sometimes stuff we talk about and stuff we bring into the curriculum is not going to be interesting in its own right. Like some of the books we pick are genuinely interesting in their own rights, and there's an author that's able to create interest, maintain it, and reward it. But here are these videos. Sometimes we'll just get right to the brass tacks of something and say, let's think about this skill. And we're not trying to create interest, maintain, and reward it because you are a captive audience already. You gotta do this to do the assignment. So we don't have to necessarily capture you and captivate you. Although I would like to try to do that because that illustrates the fullness of what I believe is good communication. It's always going to be creating interest, maintaining it, rewarding it in some form or another. We can talk about that later. But but as I'm trying to put this together, I'm not trying to necessarily have you be convinced 100% that this is right, but I should be trying to get you. I should be getting you to the point where you are willing to listen to this and to say, I wonder if that's actually how it is. But more than that, the purpose of this video and this talk is to show you how I would classify material, and I'm trying to do that right now. So I've already drawn the classification between knowledgeable, which has to do with facts, and facts that are located around one thing, and then intelligence, which is your ability to have knowledge about many things, and to come into that knowledge in a self-directed way, because you're able to assess information and put it together and then group it. So what about wisdom? What about wisdom? So it's interesting because wisdom seems to be kind of its own thing, if you will. Can you be wise without having a lot of facts? See, that's what I'm because if I can find questions to ask about this and kind of sense out the answer, it's going to help me draw up the definition. Can you be wise without being intelligent? Now is that the same as saying, can you be good without being intelligent? Because if they're exactly the same, then the two words are synonymous, and we have words that are going to, in fact, confuse the situation because there's no real difference between them. If there's no real difference between saying somebody is good and somebody is wise, then we shouldn't have the two words, because the different words sort of indicate that there is a difference to it. Now, it's winter here in Ohio, and my furnace just kicked in, so there's that background noise. I'm going to speak a little closer to the mic so that we can do this. I'm too far into the video to stop and restart it, so that's the noise you're hearing. So, is it the same to be wise as it is to be good? Well, a child can be good, but we don't tend to think of a child as wise. Wisdom seems to be related in the way we use the word, right, with this notion of being able to handle life correctly. All right, so not only do you have facts about life, and you're able to group those facts around different aspects of life. You're knowledgeable about relationships. You're knowledgeable about nutrition. You're knowledgeable about how to hold a job. You're knowledgeable about how to fix a house. You're knowledgeable about how to keep a family going in terms of support and financial things. Okay, so you have the facts. You have knowledge. If you're intelligent, you have this confidence. There it is, right? That you can figure things out. Maybe you are not knowledgeable yet about how to change a water heater, but you're intelligent, so that means that you can figure it out. You can find the teaching tools, you can find the right questions to ask, you can find a path that's going to show you, whether it's YouTube videos or talking to friends or reading manuals or whatever, you're going to find out how to do this because you know you've done it before. You know how to handle information, you know how to make the connections, put it together, and you know how to apply it. All right? So that's intelligence. Okay. Now, what is wisdom here? Well, wisdom seems to be all of that done right? All of that done in a way where things are sustainable and continuing in their good path. In other words, would we ever call somebody wise who just ruins their life by bad decisions? You see what I'm saying? It seems like we link up decisions about ethics, morality, and the right and wrong of something with wisdom. And we also link up knowledge and intelligence with wisdom. it seems like we use the word wise to indicate a person that is able to live their life well. They're going to have some mistakes. They're going to have some issues because no one is omniscient and no one is in complete control of their circumstances or in how people respond or even of their own desires at times. At times. That's the thing about the wise person is that they might slip up and fall, but that person will get back up and get on the right track again. So a wise person seems to have the ability to make the right decisions using intelligence, using information, knowledge, and intelligence to make the decisions that lead to a life lived well. Okay, all right. And I think that as we look at the way we use the word wisdom, we often use it that way. We use it in a way that indicates the person's intelligence and knowledge. But there's something extra hiding in the way we use the word that also says they make the right decisions. They know how to handle this. They know how to be successful or how to not implode or destroy, right? So can a person be wise and go through trauma and tragedy? Of course, because you're not going to be able to control many external situations, including how people respond to you, how they act to you. But can a person be wise who finds themselves in jail because they are a thief, right? Can a person be wise who finds themselves homeless because they're addicted to street drugs and they have lost control? Or maybe they are addicted to gambling and they have overshot so many things, they're deeply in debt and they can't stop trying to gamble. They want to gamble, they still think they don't have a problem. Can that person be wise? Can that person be intelligent? In other words, can they be knowledgeable about facts and how to use the facts? Can they know a lot about X, Y, or Z? Knowledge? Yes. Do they have the ability to learn knowledge on their own in different areas? Are they intelligent? Yes. Okay. Have they made the right decisions and is their life in order? They're sitting out there in the street because they have a gambling problem. They're not wise. They can be very intelligent and knowledgeable, but lacking in wisdom. So I feel like wisdom is linked up to this notion of a life lived well. All right. So I just want to go back and review the terms that I'm trying to distinguish. All right. This is classification. About mental activity and about how the mental activity comes into your life and allows you to make decisions and actions that have consequences. Facts and memory, okay, you got a lot of that, you're smart. You know how to put all this together over specific items, collections of facts, like facts about how to fix a car, you're knowledgeable. Are you able to understand the process of how you get facts and you become knowledgeable and apply it to different areas that you yourself can train yourself in? Like, can you become knowledgeable about cooking? Do you know how to do that? Okay, if you have the ability to gather the facts, make the connections, and see the principles, then you're intelligent, right? Facts is the lowest level. Knowledge is the level above. Intelligence is the ability to duplicate those levels into your life and expand, your knowledge base. And to be in charge of doing that. You're in the process of becoming intelligent when you're trying to learn how to deal with text. All the reading strategies and things like that. I'm getting a little distracted, but facts, knowledge, intelligence. Okay. Are you able to use all of that in a way that allows you to consistently make the right decisions so that your life is on a path of growth and of sustenance? In other words, it's being sustained. It's being held up as opposed to torn down, right? Are your relationships being sustained? Is your health being sustained? Is your your future and your goals, are you moving towards that in a way that is honorable? So it seems that wisdom has something to do with ethics. Are you an ethical person with your knowledge and intelligence? Okay, that's wisdom. Now, for those of us that are Christian and that have studied the Bible, you see this in James, do you not? Where I believe it's James chapter 3, right? The second part of James chapter 3 that says, if you are wise, then you are humble. Humility goes with wisdom. You can, if you are wise, you're humble. So if you find someone that is not humble, they are not wise. It's as simple as that, if you believe the words of James. So wisdom is wrapped up in ethics. So you see that I try to make different distinctions with these terms. And I think that there can be a potential erasure of this distinctions when we have sloppy application. Like we might look at somebody and say, oh, they're wise, when we actually are saying they're knowledgeable or they're intelligent. And because we sometimes use these terms as synonymous, we sometimes tend to use them incorrectly. I believe that we can carefully distinguish these terms, and in proper situations, you don't want to be constantly correcting people. I wouldn't do that. And you don't want to be overly cautious of every word that you say. That's going to take the joy out of speaking with people. But when we need to be, we can be very careful about how we use the words. That ability is in us because we're intelligent about that. So that's the purpose of classification. It's a mental tool. It's a tool of thinking that if you practice it and get it, it's going to reap benefits. So many benefits down the line in terms of how you begin to see things. All right. And hopefully that will put you on a path of wisdom. Help you at least get there. So, hey, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. This was a longer video, but think of the return of investment. You know, if you spend 31 minutes with me, maybe 32, but if you actually get something you remember for the rest of your life, that was worth it. That is cheap. That is inexpensive. How much life do you have? In fact, if you believe in Christianity and in heaven, you have all the time in the world. The one thing that you're never going to run out of is time. And you just gave me 30 minutes of it, 32 minutes of it. And I might have given you something you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Okay? So I think to watch a video for 32 minutes and to get something like this is incredibly inexpensive. You get a great return on investment. So don't think of these in terms of long videos. Think of them in terms of that was a 32-minute section of my life, and I got something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. By the way, I'm going to go a little longer here because the same thing applies to movies. We'll have you watch a movie, and we're thinking there's only one thing we want them to remember. It happens, 20 minutes from the end when that guy climbs off the airplane. If they remember that line, they got something great for the rest of their life. And to ask them to pay 2 hours of their life for it, it's nothing. So we don't feel bad about this. All right. Take care. Have a good day or night, wherever it is for you. For me, it's night, and I'm headed off to bed. So thank you for watching.